Welcome, everyone. I am Jackie Zimmerman. I am a long-term, long-time IBD patient. I've been in the space for what feels like forever, and we are here tonight on behalf of Galley Health, which is an app for people living with IBD. If you don't have it, you should get it. It's really awesome. We're here tonight talking with all of these lovely people on camera about the year we just had, 2020, am I right? So 2020 in terms of mental health, IBD, all of the above, and more importantly, what we're hoping to get out of next year and maybe what we learned this year and how we can take it into next year with us. So before we go any further, I'd like to introduce you to the wonderful people on this call. I'm really excited about this one for so many reasons, but I'd like to start with the one person on this call that I don't know very well, and that is you, Rhys. Could you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so hi, I'm Rhys. I'm 24. I've had Crohn's disease since I was 19. And if you can tell by my weird accent, I'm from New Zealand, specifically from Napier. And I guess I'm a digital designer.
Thanks for coming, Rhys.
Thank you.
What about you, Miss Stephanie Brenner?
Hi, you can call me Steph if you'd like. I am a licensed clinical social worker. I see patients with chronic illnesses like IBD, and I also am an IBD patient as well. I've had it for 20 years. It's my 2-decade anniversary. And yeah, I'm just really excited to be here.
Thanks for joining us. It's also so lovely to see your face. Ijmal, can you introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Ijmal, and I'm a Galley ambassador. I have had IBD since I was 29. I'm 34 now, and I work as an interior designer in Canada.
Thanks for joining us. And last but certainly not least, Dr. Riehl.
Hello, everybody. I am Dr. Megan Riehl. I am a clinical health psychologist, and I specialize in gastrointestinal issues. So I know Steph and Jackie. It's nice to meet everybody else on the roundtable today. A lot of my work is focused in working with patients with inflammatory bowel disease as well as those with functional bowel, and we know that there's oftentimes an overlap. I also specialize in just stress management, relaxation, and wellness. So, yeah, we've got a lot to cover with 2020 and starting to think about where we're going in 2021. So perfect timing.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And before we jump into this conversation, I have a couple little disclaimers that I want to throw out there. The first one is that while we do have these two amazing mental health professionals on this call, we are not doing live therapy tonight, my friends. They are here to offer insights and some opinions, but they will not be answering any personal questions. And then the other thing that I want to mention is this year, like we said, has been pretty rough. So we may discuss some difficult subjects tonight. So please watch at your own discretion. There will be some mental health resources in the comments on YouTube if you need any help. And without further ado, let's move in. So first, I want to reflect a little bit on 2020. We can't skip over it, right? So the first thing that I'd like to ask is, living with chronic illness, specifically IBD, do you feel like that has prepared you in any way for the pandemic? What about you, Rhys? Do you think that having IBD gave you a one-up in terms of pandemic living?
Yeah, I guess it has in a way because, you stay at home quite a bit because of your chronic illness, depending on what kind of medications you take. So obviously I'm taking some immunodepressants for my condition. So staying away from large groups of people wasn't really an issue. I'm kind of used to that. Trying to walk around in public, seeing people wear masks and gloves and stuff is kind of like post-apocalyptic movie. And I was like, whoa, this is kind of weird. But yeah, I guess it has prepared me more than the average person.
I think so too. What about you, Ijmal? What do you think?
I think I 100% believe that having a chronic illness has prepared me for the pandemic in a way, because I think for the first few years after I was diagnosed, I had already kind of isolated myself and gone through all of those stages that everybody else that doesn't have an illness has kind of had to go through at the beginning of this pandemic, because they were kind of forced to, stay in and learn to like avoid certain things, avoid certain people, avoid people that might be sick, or just avoid putting themselves in an environment which may be uncomfortable. And for us, it's different because we have an illness, and for them it was to avoid an illness. But yeah, I think everybody was kind of forced to do that, and we had a one-up just in the sense that we've already done that. We've trained ourselves to live that way every day.
Call it a chronic illness perk, right? We get so few,
Yeah.
so this can be a perk.
We
know how to do pandemic life. Steph, I wanted to ask you, as a patient, but also as a professional sort of in chronic illness in general, I want to ask you the same question, but also if you feel like if your IBD has been impacted specifically by the pandemic and the stress of it, again, not only as a patient, but also our mental health professionals during this have been some real heroes that I don't think that maybe necessarily have been given enough credit for taking on the burden of literally everyone in this time. So, have you been doing okay with all of this and your IBD management?
Yeah, thanks for asking. I feel really lucky that right now I'm in remission, and I have been since a big surgery 3 years ago. So I feel really fortunate, but it is definitely busy season. Like if you want job security, go into mental health, because for years we are going to be dealing with the aftermath of this, no matter what the age, no matter what the baseline was before. Everyone's getting a taste of anxiety or depression. I just feel like it's just so pervasive. And even within the field, we are having to manage our own stress levels and burnout, just because it feels like this heavy lifting of like everyone can be crashing at the same time.
Yeah.
Whereas pre-pandemic, I had some people, that I would see on my caseload that were kind of in remission, doing well, and we would kind of space out our appointment. And it just feels like all these old people are coming out of the woodwork. Like, oh my gosh, I really need to get in. There's a lot. Everyone's just holding a lot. And so I think I felt really lucky, like chronic illness did prepare me for this, because it's like it's almost like the collective grief. Like I've already tasted so many things that I've missed out on, so many opportunities, social things, let people down, that it feels familiar, almost like a little bit like post-traumatic stress. Like, I've had this before, but it also is weirdly nice to have everyone in the same boat, and to not be the only one in your friend group or the only one in your, collegiate group that has to like cancel something because they're sick. So I feel like it's kind of bonded a lot of people, and brought a lot of good, but it's also still it's really intense. And so I have to really work at managing my own workload, because that's usually the thing where I'm like, okay, I'm taking a little bit too much of this, taking it home with me, internalizing it. And I gotta be also, practice what I preach, and
Boundaries.
Yeah.
All the boundaries. And speaking totally on behalf of myself here, I feel like because I have a history of chronic illness, and all the things you guys have discussed, right? I have a history of isolating and being, immunocompromised and missing out on things. I feel like I'm more upset with people who are not doing these things than maybe I would be if I wasn't in this situation. So I almost feel like this added level of anger and frustration with a lot of people. Whereas I think if I didn't have a history of illness, I would just be like, well, they should be doing the right thing, but they're not. And instead, I'm like really, really angry with them. And I see a lot of nodding. So I'm just going to assume you guys all totally agree with me.
Better not to verbalize my anger about those issues.
Yeah, it's been the whole year has just been so emotional on so many different levels. It's like a layered cake. It's an onion. It's Shrek, right? Like it's, all of these different levels of anger and frustration and sadness. And I think you're right. We're going to be dealing with this for many, many moons into the future on a collective trauma and how we handle it.
Well, and also trauma piled on trauma, piled on trauma, piled on trauma, right? So, I mean, if you take a snapshot of 2020, right? It started with fires.
Yeah.
And so we had environmental concerns, which were, we all kind of were racking our brains around that. We've had a racial epidemic. We've had, the pandemic. We've had a contentious, stressful election year. And then the politicizing of the pandemic with the all of that. So, the traumas for each person's experience is vast. And I work in an academic medical institution where since the pandemic, I think I was asked to join 3 different wellness initiative councils. How do we support those that are caregivers? And so similarly with, the whole mask situation, not only do I get frustrated for people that aren't kind of following this, what I think is just be a good person type of mentality but for my patients and also for my colleagues that are burned out beyond belief and are bending over backwards to try and save people's lives. So it's heavy. This year is just like no other.
We're gonna put this one in the textbooks for future therapists on crash coursing it.
I don't know about you, but I didn't have a text. I didn't have a course in any of this.
I wish I did, though. I feel like people are looking. I think that's one of the weirdest things of being on the front lines of we are experiencing the trauma alongside our clients. Yeah. And I've had like a taste of that just having Crohn's myself. And when I'm, tanking or have a big surgery and then patients, are there, their stuff can kind of bump up against mine of like, I have to really separate my experience and make sure I'm like giving them a space for them, holding that for them. But this just feels like, well, what do I know that you don't know? Mm-hmm. I'm just trying to make it 1 hour at a time over here too. And all the tools in the world can't erase all of these unexpected losses, and so I can keep saying like, here are the strategies, let's do them together, but I'm going to keep experiencing some of those same symptoms as I sit with it all day, every day in the office, like, oh, this is really hard. This isn't, this is affecting quality of life, things like that.
Well, and for both of you, exactly to your point of you're living it at the same time and everyone is coming to you. I mean, to a certain extent, people come to you with problems regularly anyway, but this is like a whole other level of it. And so I'm curious for you two, one, are you practicing self-care? But if you have you created any new routines around self-care for you specifically in all of this? Because I feel like, especially in your profession right now, you've got to make the time for that. And I'm hoping you do. But if there's anything like new or revolutionary that you've discovered that you can share with us.
So I'll say that I bought the fancy bike that I think is the bike of 2020. And I always swore I would never have one of those bikes because why would you spend all of that money? But I will say, first I have 2 little guys and so and they were home for 10 weeks. And so I was working, and then the minute that door opens, I'm working again. And that felt heavy too, right? Because you're not commuting anymore. You don't have people dropping by your, adults dropping by your door to have conversation, and that's similar experiences to all of you too, that your work changes. So anyway, I made the commitment, and we have a group now of many of my best friends, and even if I just set aside 15 minutes for exercise. And I let go, like I'll let my kids just basically, they know when I get on the bike, they can do whatever they want. And the basement is a disaster at the end. And it's just like, I don't even care. Like that's my time. And so I think letting go of some of the rigid structures of how we thought it was going to be or how we want it to be, to just say like, you have to find what fits for you. And it doesn't have to be a fancy bike, but for me, it was worth, figuring that out in order to make that work. And it could be anything for somebody, yoga. I've been doing more meditation than I've ever done And I've been telling people about meditation, teaching meditation for years, right? But I'm doing at least, not perfect, but most days I'm doing some form of meditation, and usually it's right before bed because I find it just helps to let go of the day. So yes, even those of us that do this every day, my routine has changed pretty dramatically, and it'll probably continue to change over, the evolving 2021.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm with you in the fact of like, I've been talking about a lot of the things for years and preaching it to clients and knowing the research behind it. And now I'm actually like forced to do it. Like if I don't do it, I will feel it. And so I feel like movement has been huge. And then nature, like I live in Chicago. I have to be by the lake. I have to go to a forest preserve. Like I just have to have, I don't know. Sometimes I've even like made sure that I structure my day to have a sunset, to not be working around. It's like 4:15 now, but like to not be working that hour so that I can just be walking outside while the sun is setting, and maybe by the lake would be amazing. So like, I've never thought about that. I'm just like, oh, I'm at the office and then you drive home in the dark. But what if I didn't schedule a client in that window? That brings me so much joy, and or yeah, like you said, the meditation app, like I feel like if I look at the last 5 years, I was sporadic, whereas now I'm like, it's my vitamin. Like you need this preventatively, like take it every day. Cause again, if you don't keep it up, you'll feel it. Like your nervous system will not just bounce back. So
I also feel like in regards to meditation and just, taking a mental break, however you do that, I find that if I don't do it, I'm fine, and then I'm not fine. I'm all of a sudden like anxiety, stress, can't focus. If I don't balance it, it's goes downhill like immediately. And I'm like, oh, that was dumb. I should have probably prioritized those things. Ijmal or Rhys, did either of you find any fun passion projects or hobbies in our alleged downtime?
I wouldn't say that I found any passion projects. I feel like I put myself more into my work and my career and like growing that. And surprisingly, like I feel like because of the year that we've had, a lot of people aren't traveling either. So they've got a lot more money that they're wanting to spend on making their houses more, COVID friendly, I guess. So I've actually been quite busy with work in that too. So I've kind of just delved right into work. And that's how it's gone for me.
What about you,
I
Rhys?
agree. I'm the same. Like I found way more time to focus on my craft, because last year I had to stop work because of my Crohn's. It was getting a bit too much, so I had to start freelancing. So I guess all this free time helped me build my business and reputation. So there's wins and there's losses, but yeah.
I feel the same way. I'm also work for myself, and I was very fortunate because I was really busy this year, like really, really fortunate, really thankful. But when I saw everybody cleaning their closets or learning to paint or, learning a foreign language, I was like, I don't know what any of it. My life is the same. Like I didn't have any extra time. All the downtime was just turn my brain off time because I was so busy.
I had so many patients that came to me with the same kind of responses of like, should I be learning how to grow my own sourdough bread? Because I don't have the capacity to do that right now. And so I had a lot of conversations in therapy with patients that, sure, it feels like, and some people might, and God willing and God loving for you to do that, I'm so happy. That's a great use of your time. But for those that just didn't feel like they had the capacity to do that, and again, along various socioeconomic situations and single parents trying to navigate and homeschooling kids, and all of these very complex issues, a lot of patients were just wondering, like, why am I the one that can't take this or take up meditation or, do these things. And so a lot of conversations were had around, our brains aren't used to operating in a pandemic. So even if we are, at home, if you're the person that goes out and gets the groceries for the family, all of the extra steps that you're taking to protect yourself and keep yourself safe just to go to the grocery store is exhausting. And then, back in March and April when we were wiping everything down and all this stuff, I continue to normalize that for people that, even if you're furloughed or not working, there's worries and concerns with that as you sit at home. So if you get more depressed or feel more anxious or your disease flares or you're having more GI symptoms, I think we really have to continue to acknowledge that there's still so much going on that our brains and bodies just aren't used to. And we think we are because we've been doing this for several months now, but this is still not our normal. And so, sometimes it just feels like if your head is above water and you're breathing, take that and let's see if we can get you a little bit more above water and a little bit more above water. But it's so, there have been so many different challenges for people and some people have thrived. And so, that's good too.
I have a question actually. Oh, sorry.
No,
Jackie.
take it
cool?
away.
Yeah. Sorry, I have a question for the medical professionals, I guess. So because in this last year, I feel like a lot of people have been spending a lot more time on social media and they're seeing all these people baking bread and they're seeing all these people taking up new hobbies. Do you feel like that could have become a hindrance for some people, or do you think that it was a motivating factor for others?
That's a great question. I always think that social media is such a two sides of the same coin. So it's like for some people it can be really inspiring depending on who's in your feed, who are you following, who's, what kind of messages are they putting out there. It's also just I don't know if anyone saw The Social Dilemma, but it's something where you got to keep it in check. We got to know who's behind this, and we also it needs to be in its place in your life. So when it starts bleeding into everything and really affecting self-image and identity and all these, I do feel like I do discuss it quite a bit with patients, just because it can become this, I don't know, just something where it's not life-giving. It takes away, causes stress. That being said, there's lots of great apps and sites that can connect patients with each other. So I don't think we want to throw the baby out with the bathwater and just say, yeah, no screen time. It's just not doable. But how can I kind of check in with myself about, is this, positive for my mental health today? Do I need to take a break? How long, or maybe I unfollow that person who's really, causing me a lot of stress. It's kind of tricky.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think the self-check-ins are important. And I also think depending on your own emotional state, that can help you kind of justify too. So if you're pretty stable and, you ebb and flow with, we all feel sad sometimes and we all feel anxious, but for the most part, if you're feeling pretty stable, I think we can do a pretty good job at looking at social media for what it is, right? So, that looking for the inspiring stuff, looking for the beauty, looking for the recipes, and seeing the beautiful pictures, but also knowing okay, it doesn't look like that all the time, or they spent a lot of effort to make it look so beautiful, or that's their job, the home edit. I got sucked into the home edit and, started buying bins and organizing. But, if you're more severely anxious or going down that road of depression, I think then it becomes, more difficult you might start to go down that road of well, why can't I ever? Or why is it so great for them? Or so again, if you're finding that your social media feeds and experiences are adding to your mood symptoms, that's another good kind of big red flag of we need to get you some help and reaching out and some support to help get things more stable.
speaking a little bit of some of these apps and things we've been talking about, in terms of your medical care, you guys, has that changed for you since the pandemic? Like the way you have appointments, if telehealth, or getting ostomy supplies, or has there been any sort of major change or hiccup in any of your medical care since this started?
Yeah, majorly. At the beginning, it was all uncool, and I was like, "Ah, I don't think I'm gonna get like the same. It's not this real same feeling that you get when you're like face to face with your doctor. Like you usually forget like heaps of stuff on your phone, and I'm like, ah, shit, I should have said that. But now it was pretty difficult at the beginning, like going through all the tests before you could actually go see a doctor, or having those calls, or waiting for the pharmacist to get you what you need. But yeah, I guess it's just what it is.
What about you, Steph or Ishmael? I mean, you both have, needs for supplies and appointments.
Surprisingly, this year, I don't think I've actually physically seen any of my doctors. It's only ever been on the phone. Um, that being said, when I go for my infusions, obviously I see the nurses there, and that process has changed completely compared to last year versus this year. Whereas, like before it was a lot more casual, and my partner used to come with me to the appointments, and now like nobody else is allowed. Everybody's got to be in full PPE, and it's just completely different. And I think for the first few months when that had changed and I started going to my infusions, there was like this weird, like you almost mourned the way that it used to be, but now it's become the new normal, which is weird. But yeah, so as far as medical appointments go, I haven't really had any that weren't on the phone aside from my infusions.
I had some that were made into telehealth and some that I still went in. But I did notice, so I have a permanent ostomy. And so I did notice that like temptation to hoard supplies, like the toilet paper hoarder, because it was like this like existential, like, what if this is the end of the world and I literally need this thing to survive? Like, I could just like hold a plastic bag if I was like in the wilderness. But I was just thinking like there was a lot of anxiety over like I do know our healthcare system is broken. So that I feel like there's other patients too that kind of went there mentally. It's been a pretty smooth process. I've never run out. But I definitely ordered the maximum amount, whereas before I wouldn't have to like think like that and like text myself reminders. So yeah, I feel like things did shift, but I think now I'm just more on top of things too. Of like, I can always have a telehealth visit if I need one. And
with the anxiety you mentioned around that, I know during this whole year, my mental health has been all over the place, right? Like I'm great, I'm not great, everything's fine, it's not fine. And then like sometimes it's always like all over. Do you feel like your mental health has kind of stuck in there, or what have you guys felt in terms of, your mental health and your stability throughout the year?
Well, I mean, there was definitely a travel ban, but I feel like I took a fucking trip with my mental health this year. I was like all over the map, to be honest. Just like you said, like there were good days, there were bad days, and then all of a sudden you're kind of, you're like, yeah, I got this, like I'm doing good, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh my god, I haven't seen a real person in so long, and then you just like it just really starts to get to you, and then you have to like reel yourself back in, and so 100%, I feel like it's been up and down, and yeah, that's just how I feel like it's going to stay for a while.
I had a lot of days too where I was like, I just feel weird today. I'm just off today, right? I didn't know I felt anxious. I didn't know that there wasn't like a clear catalyst. I was just like, things are just meh today. And I think I've done a really good job at identifying, like giving myself permission to have all kinds of weird days. But I found that the first couple times that happened, that was kind of new for me, just being like, it's just a day. I'm having a day. And that's all that I could describe it as, is just a day.
yeah, I got in the habit of saying it's a COVID day. Not that any day is not a COVID day, but like where it just gets to you and you're like, I've hit my max. Like I can't. And letting yourself, naming it felt really good, and just naming it as a day. So trying to see it as temporary, and like, honestly, it could be a COVID hour. It really does fluctuate of like, I'm like actually doing really well. I feel like I'm rocking it. I like our systems, and then the next day is like, I need to improve everything. Yes, I need to get all the bins, and we are reorganizing everything. I'm with you, Megan. So it also is like trying to just have, I don't know, just have like self-compassion, and just knowing like, it's okay to ride the roller coaster. I'm resilient. I'm going to get through this. And it's just kind of put one foot in front of the other. And it's okay if I have to have a whole day of being really grumpy or sad or whatever unpleasant emotion I don't want to feel.
So true.
Yeah, I feel that too with the whole roller coaster thing, ups and downs. It's like the whole year I've been like, every like few months is a new theme that I have to like compress and like compile and figure out how to process it. Like what we were saying with the whole global warming thing in the beginning of the year, then it was COVID, then it was Black Lives Matter, and I'm like, what am I doing? What am I going to process first? How am I supposed to deal with this? And the conversations that everybody was having this year was a lot. And yeah, we all had to, go through so much.
So thinking about 2021, a big question that I have for both you, Steph, and Dr. Riehl is managing like long-term pandemic fatigue. So some people felt this in like April. They were like, I'm over it. We've been doing this a month. And now we're starting to push a year of really not doing much. And the end is maybe in sight. I don't know. I guess it depends on how you feel about what's going on. But we're not there yet. So for those people, myself included, who are experiencing some serious pandemic fatigue, how do we start 2020 knowing it's not over yet?
I think, 2021 offers us this, new beginning, right? Like every year we get this new beginning, and not a whole lot changes, right? Like from December 31st to January 1st, not much changes, but it gives us this internal sense of, okay, we're gonna look at things through different eyes. And I think the reality is that luckily, as some of my friends got the vaccine today and yesterday, and they're medical providers on the front lines, and that happened a lot quicker than I thought it was going to happen. Yeah. And so that doesn't mean, though, that we stop wearing our masks, and that, all of us, I work from home, so I'm going to be low man on the totem pole in terms of getting it. But we're starting to have some hope. And so I think with that, we can also then recommit to some of the things that helped us back in March. I think I wrote a couple blogs and did a couple interviews on what can we do? We're in this pandemic, what do we do? And, it was connect socially, make those calls, even if you feel like you don't really want to, get on a Zoom call with a couple friends and just start talking. And I'm sure you'll find it meaningful. Get outside and breathe some fresh air, even if it's cold, bundle up and get outside. I had my kids bundled up and we were out running around in the park in March because that's where we need it. They have energy, so we need to run that. So a lot of those things we're going to have to do in January and February and March and April again. And again, that riding that continued roller coaster of emotions, that if you're having a day, give yourself the day or the hour or the moments to just validate that this is still hard. Just because January 2021 is coming, it doesn't mean it's going to wipe away all the stuff we just did and went through. So again, I think being prepared to continue to manage your mental health, whether that means, if you've been contemplating getting a therapist, make it your first, couple of calls in January of 2021, because what better gift can you give yourself than to just talk to somebody about an objective person that, it's not about me, it is about you, which we don't get from friendships so much. So I think there's a lot that we have to acknowledge and validate with this pandemic fatigue. That's not going to change all that much between December and January, but yet I really do feel there's this sense of hope, and that by this time next year, maybe we'll be a little closer to sitting in the same room together. I don't know if we are, it's still probably going to be masked and a little bit distant, but we're getting, I think we're closer to the other side than we were in March.
Yeah.
I wanted to say that it's really important, I feel like, to kind of cultivate that hopefulness. So trying to, I just feel like as a practice, gratitude has a bad rap. I feel like it's so trite, but like focusing on like what is going right in my life right now. There's a lot going wrong. There's a lot of things I don't like, but what is going well, and kind of like savoring that. And then also, shout out to Brene Brown, one of my favorite social workers. She has a podcast, and she had like the best episode in October, and it was all about burnout. I don't know if anyone listened to this one. It was like these sisters who are researchers, and they're really brilliant, and they wrote this whole book. But it was basically like defining, I mean, even listening to it, I was like, that's me, like all these defining the different types of like emotional fatigue that this pandemic has given to us. And then what are like their 5, very research based things like Megan was talking about. So like movement was one, like literally any physical movement. It doesn't have to be running or biking. It could just be going for a walk around the block. Creative expression. So finding some sort of way to get in touch with that side. Laughter was one of them. Breath work, so some sort of diaphragmatic breathing or meditation. And then affection, I thought was really interesting. So they were like, this is the one everybody does. It's like you get a 20-second hug from anyone. It could be a pet, it could be a stuffed animal, but it's just like that oxytocin, that chemical that gets released, the bonding hormone. It can just like lower your blood pressure. And so just trying to be like, okay, what are my things? What are my things that I just need to cross off today? I have to get some sort of movement. So trying to get a little bit more in terms of habits, because we are in a waiting game. And as much as we want this vaccine to just change everything, hopefully it will, but it's going to take time. And so it's just trying to be like, well, I've got more time to practice all the things that I know I need to be doing, but I don't necessarily want to, make time for it. It's worth it.
Steph, you kind of just answered a question that I was going to bring up, which was when we were talking about social media and how I think for a lot of IBD patients where we feel isolated, we go there for connection. But right now we have this other thing where we go there and sometimes it makes us feel really bad lately. So if you're feeling really disconnected and you don't want to be on social, like right now, and you can't go into the world, what do you do? And I think that what you just mentioned, those 5 things, is a really great way to look at that, like movement and affection and creativity, listing out some of those different ways. If social's not your bag right now, but you're still feeling really, really down, looking for other avenues to kind of bring you back without doom scrolling on Instagram.
Yeah. And check out, there's a lot of IBD podcasts out there, including, I heard you have one, right? Or it's some sort of a show, or no?
Well, I was doing a podcast called Not Crazy. It was a mental health podcast. I'm no longer doing it anymore, but you should still go listen to it. It's a great resource. But there are a lot of really, really great IBD podcasts about IBD with Amber Tresca, Myelin and Melanin. Yep. There's so many of them. They're all really good. Go support your friends, even if they're not really your friends, they're still your friends.
Don't you have Shits and Giggles, or is that something else?
Oh yeah, that also, Shits and Giggles on the Galley Health app, where I interview other IBD patients and we talk about the most embarrassing thing that's ever happened to us. It's totally a good time. So that actually another great segue. Steph, I'm just going to have you like as my sidekick feeding me.
I'm a co-moderator apparently.
Yeah.
I didn't know that was going.
I was gonna ask you guys like if there was something that you started doing this year that you want to continue into next year. And so Steph, I've been doing some kind of like creative things, right? Like the Shits and Giggles, and I've tried some like fine arts stuff that I haven't touched in I don't even know how long. I asked my husband to teach me how to write songs yesterday, like just stuff that is so far out of my realm. But I know that the creativity and the nature are the things that are keeping me really, really grounded, even if I'm really bad at it. And so I'm hoping to continue and maybe not be bad at it next year. But has there anything that you guys have picked up that you are like, this is a good thing that I want to keep doing?
Well, speaking of podcasts, there is a very exciting thing that I've been working on through Galley, actually, which I don't know if I'm actually allowed to talk about, but I am. And so that should be coming out in next month, I believe. But yeah, it's another podcast on IBD. So we've been spending like the last few months working on that, which has been really exciting. And then um, I grew up speaking French, and then I kind of lost the ability to. So I've been like Duolingoing my like French back, and I'm able to like speak French again. So I guess like that's something. But yeah.
That's exciting. I definitely do not have that going on. What about you, Rhys? Anything that you've started doing, even if it's like just taking walks or breathing deeply?
I actually started learning how to do mantra meditation. So that took a while to like figure out, but I think once I got a hang of it, it's come like really handy with some of my like stress relieving. So I know stress is like one of my main triggers for my IBD. So using that mantra to just like get out of my head and just start relaxing and get over it was something I really want to bring into 2021. And I was helping a friend this year make like a short movie, so I'm working on making my own short movie for next year. So that's a
Yes.
process.
What about you, Dr. Riehl? Are you going to keep
And
riding your bike into 2021?
I'm going to ride that bike into 2021. And, I think I mentioned I'm a mom. I've got a 4-year-old and a 20-month-old. And, my 20-month-old at this point, he doesn't really know anything different besides the pandemic. And, I'm lucky that they are in a safe environment. They go to daycare. My 4-year-old still talks about like, when the sickness goes away, Mom, can we go do X, Y, and Z again? Because, he remembers going to the library and the children's museum and, these places that I was the obsessive, like I didn't even let him go play on the public parks. Like we didn't do that. We still don't do that. So I've been practicing patience and parenting skills, honestly. Like, I'm having these long, busy days and their little brains are, just trying to process everything too, which, can sometimes lead to different behaviors. And, so into 2021, I'm going to keep working on, giving myself grace as a parent too, that I'm not perfect. And sometimes I lose my shit. And I'm, especially like as a psychologist, there's all these misconceptions about like, oh, we must like have, it's not all roses. So, practicing grace and patience into 2021 is going to be like an ongoing thing for me. And the bike helps with that. So put on some swearing music and like, just like go hardcore on that.
Steph, what about you?
We have getting a kitten on our agenda for 2021. So I can't wait for that. We're more just like researching and like seeing what's out there. But I would say a daily walk, no matter how gross it is, that's been kind of a fun thing of like, there's no bad weather, there's just bad clothes or something like that. So like bundle up, get on board, let's do it. It doesn't have to be that long. I really want to continue that because I feel like it's just like invigorate. It like wakes me up. And then once a week, I've been doing lunch with my niece and nephew because they're in my little COVID bubble. And it's been so fun. It's like Friday lunch. I can't wait. Like it gets me through the week. So I don't know, just little traditions like that. Like if I have to miss it for a doctor's appointment or I have to schedule patients that day for some, I get really bummed out. And I'm like, I would have never even rearranged everything without this. It just is really, I don't know. It's really helped me kind of like rethink how I want to do life and what I want to prioritize. So definitely want to keep that on my radar because they're really little and it's fun.
That's how my husband and I have been doing Sunday picnics. And for this weekend will be our 25th weekend in a row. I've been counting because what else do we have going on? And we were taking walks and then it got cold and I'm not as brave as you are. So now we have very short winter snow picnics where we eat really fast and we go, okay, that was a picnic, and then we leave. They were much longer in the summer, but that was one thing that we both decided we want to keep doing. I mean, until it's like absolutely miserable. But
You go different places.
yeah, we'd get takeout from a different place and then we go to a different park. We've so many parks that we didn't even know existed, which has been it's been like a hobby and something to look forward to. And something I really sincerely hope that we continue doing because it's quality time together and, all of the good reasons why it's a fun thing. But we're getting close to our time and I want to ask you all one more question. And I don't know how I feel about the question I'm going to ask you. I'm just going to say that. It's New Year's resolution based, and I have qualms about resolutions. So what we'll say is, what do you hope for in the new year / is there anything you want to accomplish, like despite COVID? Like if you could just say 2021 is going to be the year I'm going to X, what would your X be?
I don't want to be that guy, but like COVID's not that big of a thing in New Zealand anymore. Sorry to say.
Oh, you're that guy. That's 100%.
I had to be that guy. I'm so sorry. We did it. No, I'm kidding. Sorry.
Fair though.
But yeah, besides that, I think the main thing I want to do is just carry on being a part of the IBD community because this is my first year actually like being a part of it. I've ignored it for so long, but I'm glad I'm part of it now. And Ijmal's helped me like through some stuff this year, so I'm glad to like connect with all you guys and more people. So yeah, that's what I'm going to hope for.
Welcome. What about you, Ijmal?
I don't know. That's tough. That's not like I'm the same way you are. Like I don't like making resolutions because it's like I don't know. Like if you want to do something, just like do it every day mindfully. But I guess one thing that I've appreciated that's happened in the last year is the fact that I feel like a lot of us have had the ability to slow down and actually have real conversations again with people. So I feel like the words like, hey, how's it going? Before were just like, is just what we would say. Now there's a lot more weight to it and we actually have real conversations. And I want to make sure that moving forward, even if we're on the tail end of, COVID or whatever it may be, I still want to carry that forward into the new year and make sure that I'm still having those real conversations with people. And yeah, I think that's something that I want to carry forward.
I'm with you. I feel like I ask people now, like, no, really, how are you now? Right? It's not just how are you? It's like I actually give a crap. I want to know how you are as a person, as a human in your life. And I'm with you. That feels so much more authentic and meaningful than just like, oh, I'm cool. How are you? Cool. Let's talk about our jobs now,
I mean, you and I have had many good conversations this year too. So like, yeah, we'll keep those going.
Yeah, for sure. I'll message you later. Steph, any New Year's not resolution but plans?
Besides that kitten, I would say one of my IBD friends from camp is a personal trainer, and that's so cliche that like I'm going to start doing some online virtual sessions because she's a small business owner, and how great. And we were camp counselors together way back in the day, and she is IBD and I love her. So I feel like I'm looking forward to that. We're starting it tomorrow. So it's not really a new year, but it's like, I would love to have more movement and some more accountability. And I'll probably do it with my partner, and it'll be a nice little break from the work week. So that's on my to-do.
I like that for all the reasons: supporting small businesses, supporting IBD friends, movement. And I feel like, New Year's resolutions are always tied to like, I'm going to lose weight. But this year feels so different to me because it's like, I want to move. I want to do more than sit in a chair. And that feels so valid compared to any other year previously. Because since we stopped kind of taking walks because the weather has gotten so poor. I feel like I walk, if I had a step counter, it would be like 45 steps in a day, like from my bedroom to my office to the bathroom and back. It's so bad. And you realize how little you move if you don't make the effort to move.
Yeah.
So yeah, do that. Do that.
I'll work on it.
Yeah. Dr. Riehl, any final resolutions?
Yeah, I mean, I ended 2019 starting a at Dr. Riehl Instagram page, and thinking that that would be a fun way to connect with people in a more visual way, and in the scheme of like social media and stuff, it's so like, I mean, like I just got 500 followers and that felt incredible because I feel like I'm connecting with these people. They're like people, not just a follower. Like it's not a follower. So I want to keep connecting with people to educate on what is GI psychology and how can it play a role in your medical care, and educating patients and other mental health providers and physicians. And I'm just really passionate about putting that kind of good word out there in a fun way too. So I'm going to continue to kind of plug away at my little like Instagram account and my Twitter, and connecting with like real people about these types of topics. And I also ended 2019 coming into 2020 saying, I'm going to say no to more stuff. Like I'm just going to, and like that got like wiped away. Like, so but what I have focused more on, and I'm going to continue, is like really saying yes to things that I'm passionate about. And even if it like adds a little more to the plate, I feel like when you're more passionate about it, like you make it work. And then you say no to some of the stuff that maybe is just not the right time for you. And you can uplift somebody else to kind of, maybe that's their thing. So uplifting, connecting, self-care, that's 2021 for me.
Well, you have my support in all of those things. I know that matters a ton, but you totally do.
It does matter. It does matter.
Well, as we come to a close, I just really want to thank all of you for having this conversation with me tonight, not only because this year was kind of a crap basket for everybody, and a lot of us are still trying to figure out ways to navigate that. But one, sharing your experiences, your insight is really helpful to everybody, because there's still that part of us that's like, is it just me? Am I the only one having a COVID day, right? Like you still don't know because we don't have any data research to back this experience up. So thank you for coming up here and showing your truth and your authentic selves, and also talking about what 2021 could look like, both mentally, emotionally, practically. I am just very grateful for your time this evening. And I hope to connect with all of you in 2021 so we can make all this stuff happen. So if you haven't already, download the Galley Health app. Not only are there live streams like this one, but Shits and Giggles is in there. Ijmal's show is going to be in there. There's another one by Luke Escom, which is coming very soon. There's all kinds of really super fun stuff happening, and it's really exciting. So download the app. Also, it really is helpful for your IBD too, aside from the cool shows in there. But it's a good tool. But with that, have a happy holiday, everybody. Thank you again for joining us, and have a good one. Stay safe.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you.